Welcome back to another tabletop review. Today we'll be taking a look at the Glock 17 Gen 5 9mm semi-automatic pistol. Some say that the Glock 17 was the gun that changed everything in the world of handguns, and not only in how they're made but also in what people have come to expect from their handguns. We'll take a little time to explore this point later, but let's begin with making sure this gun is cleared first. By the way, if you enjoy this review, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. For those of you that have followed my channel, you know that while I respect the Glock brand, I've never owned one. Whenever I come close to buying one, something else pops up that's been a little more appealing to me. Also, for whatever reason, I'm not at my best with the Glocks. My son's a Glock fan. He owns two. I reviewed his G26 Gen 4 about a year and a half ago. Nice weapon, nice size for concealed carry. And more recently, I reviewed his G19 Gen 3. And even though I've shot a number of Glocks rented from one of my shooting ranges, I've never really felt compelled to own one. At the same time, I'm well aware that the more compact Glock 19 has earned worldwide distinction for its outstanding reliability with a reputation of being able to withstand extreme brutal conditions. But the Glock 17, with its excellent accuracy, comfortable shooting characteristics, easy maintenance, widespread aftermarket support, and reasonable price, must also be acknowledged as one of the most popular pistols in the world. Okay, even though all that may be true, I still haven't owned a Glock until now. So what happened to get me to pick up a Glock 17? Well, to be honest, I've been looking for a suppressor-ready 9mm pistol to dedicate to home defense. I could either buy a new suppressor-ready pistol or I could get a threaded barrel for one of my current guns. Whatever came up first for the best price would be the one that I'd act on. That was my plan. A good threaded barreled 9mm pistol, like my suppressor-ready Walther PPQ Navy, would probably run me about $1,000 or more. The cheapest threaded barrel pistol I had found was a CZ P09 for about $650. While researching my options, I could see that a threaded barrel for Glocks was readily available, while others that might fit one of my current guns were backordered and no longer available. Even one of my local gun shops actually carried a few threaded Glock barrels. I could literally pick one off the shelf. Even getting some taller sights, even in night sight format, was doable for what I thought was a reasonable price. One of the real advantages of Glock is its amazing aftermarket support. You've got to appreciate that. And I was okay with either the 19 or the 17, but the 17 Gen 5 had its appeal. And since my plan was for the gun to be used primarily for home defense and range work, the larger G17 would be just fine. Of course, the G19 would be easier to carry if I wanted to take advantage of that option. So I expanded my search to include a good deal on a Glock. I was on this search for months, but I saw very few what I would call good deals on Glocks out there. However, eventually it was this used Glock 17 Gen 5 that presented itself to me at a local gun shop recently with a price tag that got my attention. The gun seemed in good condition and the dealer was willing to sell it to me at a price that made it difficult to turn down. And so here it is, my first Glock. Like I said, I think Glocks are fine guns, but I've never been attracted to them personally. Still, I thought this one might make a good host gun at the very least. So, what do I think after a few months of ownership? Well, before I get into that, let's back up and talk a little about Glock. It is said that Glock firearms have been some of the fastest selling products in history. Glock is an Austrian manufacturing company that began its life in the 1960s making curtain rods. The man behind Glock's success was Gaston Glock. Smart guy, but he was more than that. In 1980, he responded to an opportunity to develop a new pistol for the Austrian army. By 1982, he had secured the contract and the Glock 17 became the standard sidearm for the Austrian army. To some extent, Gaston's lack of firearm knowledge gave him an advantage. He didn't have to think outside the box, he was already outside. He could be more open to suggestions and new ideas, and his extensive knowledge and expertise in polymers would be a key factor in the success of Glock. He completely eliminated the need for an external safety, took a different approach to trigger design, created a now famous safe action trigger system, and he reduced the number of moving parts in his gun, which resulted in unparalleled reliability. And the polymer frame construction meant the gun could be produced at a price point that was very attractive. In addition, Glock was smart when it came to marketing, pushing his new creation out to the law enforcement community with huge discounts. Even in the U.S., about 200,000 police departments use Glocks as their standard sidearms. True, Glocks were not the first polymer guns ever made. H&K had produced the VP-70Z pistol in 1970, but Glock refined and brought the production of polymer guns to scale. Tens of millions of Glocks have been manufactured. The Glock 17 was the first Glock pistol and probably one of Glock's most successful designs. There have been 5 generations produced of the 17. By the way, the designation of 17 was not a reflection on the gun's capacity or its version. It was related to the gun's patent, which was the 17th. This is the G17 Gen 5 or 5th generation, the most recent variation. The Gen 3 and Gen 4 are also still available and often preferred over the updated models. As for the differences between the generations, I'll only mention the highlights of this G5 over previous renditions. The finger grooves have been eliminated in order to better fit variations in hand sizes, and there's a pronounced beveling of the magazine well in order to better facilitate magazine changes. The magazines now have orange followers. The Glock 17 Gen 5 also sports an ambidextrous side release, and the muzzle is beveled to help with reholstering, and I think it gives the Gen 5 a better look. The slide finish has also been updated. NDLC coating has been applied, which Glock claims is more wear resistant and designed to function more efficiently in poor conditions. And finally, the G17 Gen 5 comes with a match grade Glock marksman barrel from the factory with new rifling and a smaller crown for increased accuracy. Now, as you may know from my other reviews, if I know a movie connection for one of these firearms, I try to point that out. As you probably know from simple observation, Glocks are everywhere in movies, but it was the second Bruce Willis Die Hard action film in 1990 in which Glocks first got major Hollywood attention. Note that Willis's character, John McClane, mistakenly refers to the gun as a Glock 7 German-made porcelain gun in that film. And by the way, technically, the first film featuring the Glock 17 was actually the 1988 Hong Kong movie Tiger Cage, 2 years before Bruce Willis's film Die Harder. As for packaging, the Glock 17 Gen 5 came in a plastic case, came with its manual and other paperwork, came with 2 extra magazines, came with a mag loader, came with a set of 4 backstrap options, came with a cleaning brush and tool, and of course it came with the lock. The Glock 17 is a 9mm semi-automatic. The slide is steel, the frame is polymer, the barrel is Glock's match grade marksman's barrel, the sights are plastic. The Glock 17 comes with a total of 3 magazines. Capacity is 17 plus 1. Magazine release is here. The trigger is Glock's safe action system. Trigger pull is rated at 5.5 pounds. Note that this particular slide has serrations on the front and the rear. Slide release is here, and it's ambidextrous. The grips have good stippling on the sides and on the front and on the rear. Dimensions, the overall length is 7.28 inches. The barrel is 4.49 inches. Height is 5.5 inches. Width is 1.34 inches. And the weight is 25.26 ounces unloaded. There's also an MOS version of the G17, which stands for Modular Optic System, which allows you to mount virtually any red dot optic on the market with the interchangeable mounting plates. As for function, the 17 round magazines were easy enough to load utilizing the included Glock mag loading tool, although I've got to say it won't be replacing my Maglula loader anytime soon. I like that this gun came with 3 magazines, and I like the orange followers on these magazines. The rounds loaded view holes are excellent. By the way, I also picked up a couple more Glock's 17 round magazines for about $16 each at a local gun store. The wonders of what's out there for Glocks. I think the flared magazine well is great, but like many of the features on this gun, like the marksman's barrel, their value is probably lost on me due to my own limitations. The gun feels fairly light and seems to have good balance, and the stippling seems aggressive, and personally I would have preferred the finger grooves. The stock grips feel okay, but just a little boxy in the front and narrow overall for me. The mag release is at a conventional location, but charging the slide seems heavy to me, although smooth. The slide serrations on the front and the rear are good and help. When I first was introduced to Glocks, I thought the factory sights were fine, but as I've spent some time at the range with this gun, I've become less content. These are plastic, and the sight picture doesn't really work that well for me. I think I can do better. The trigger is a little narrow for my liking, but take up is only about 1/4 inch with the short follow through to break. Trigger pull is light, about 5.5 pounds. Reset is reasonably short, defined and very crisp. Not great, but not bad. I've been spoiled by my Walther PPQ, so I'm a little biased. Recoil was light and reasonable muzzle lift. I was okay with the stationary target at 25 feet. My standard pistol training distance, however, has been my history with Glocks. I seem to struggle a bit with staying on target during rapid fire and with alternating targets. Not horrible, but not my best. As I said before, for some reason I've never been very good with Glocks. That's one of the reasons I've never owned one. When I look at the guns that I'm instinctively good with, like my SIG P239, my Walther PPQ, or my Browning High Power, or even my everyday carry SIG P232, there seems to be something about the grips, maybe the grip angle. As I understand, Glock determined the best angle by giving people a couple of nailed together sticks and asking them to fix the best angle, and 22 degrees was what won out. Whatever, I thought with the different backstrap options that came with this gun, perhaps I could find a configuration that might help me with this issue. This gun hasn't had any modifications to it yet, so it's a basic Glock 17 Gen 5, and I thought I'd just begin with the gun as it is and then go from there. I'll probably start with trying the different backstraps one at a time. They're easy enough to install. In fact, Glock even provides a tool for installing the backstraps and a replacement pin here, a longer pin than the one that comes from the factory. We're going to push out the pin. With the pin out, we can just select one of the back straps. We're going to hook the bottom of the replacement back strap on the butt of the gun here, and then push it into place. I'm going to use the punch provided just to line up the holes there, and then install the new pin, pushing out the punch as I go. just use the flat end here to push the pin in. And then, by the way, if you wanted to use a punch, it's a 30-second punch. Should do the job. And there we go. As for cons, as handguns go, given what I paid, there's not much I'd really criticize too strongly about the Glock 17. Sure, if I compare this Glock 17 to some of my high-end guns, I could go on and on about its shortcomings, but I try to look at guns as objectively as I can, avoiding pointing out items that are really just personal preference. For example, it's common to hear people call Glocks ugly, but that's just an opinion. Overall, though, this is a reasonably priced, well thought out, very functional, highly reliable firearm, and Glocks should be respected for their good, solid reputation. As a company, Glock appears to have been very responsive to the demands of the market, but it's hard to please everyone. If you respond to what might attract new converts to the Glock brand, you could just easily as upset some of your original loyal fans. And that appears to be the case with Glock's generational modifications. So you see a lot of comments on the internet regarding the differences between the Gen 3, the Gen 4, the Gen 5. Everyone seems to have an opinion, but Glock still offers the Generation 3 and 4 models in order to minimize that problem, which I commend. So what are the commonly heard cons about the Glock 17 Gen 5 specifically? Outside of everyone's personal preference issues, my research suggests problems with ejection, either weak or failures to feed, and excessive wear on the barrel. I see that on this gun. There are those of the opinion that Glock rushed the Gen 5 to the public before sorting out things as well as they could have. Of course, that's a whole host of opinions regarding trigger, grip fit, and sights. And although all these issues can be real problems if it's your Glock, it is to Glock's credit that given the sheer number of guns produced, those problems appear pretty minor. As I've said before, that anything man-made has a risk for defects, even Glock. And let's be realistic, Glock has produced a huge number of these handguns. And the more you produce, the greater the chance are for lemons. We can only hope that they are minimal and infrequent. As for my personal issues with this gun, well, in my opinion, the slide is hard to rack. I'm not keen on the grips or the trigger. And one more thing. Other than serving as a lint trap, what the heck is the open space behind the magazine well all about? So while personal preference has steered me away from Glocks up till now, there's no doubting their popularity. And in fact, that's one of the reasons why I've tried to stay open-minded and one of the reasons I now own this G17. There's no doubt it's a benchmark handgun, and its development has significantly influenced the world of handguns. So what are the main pros? Beyond the basic Glock strengths like general reliability, easy maintenance, its unequal support for parts, upgrades, and accessory, and its shooting comfort, accuracy, and the fact that it's reasonably priced, the G17 Gen 5 also adds the latest Glock NDLC surface finish on all the major metal components, which Glock states provides unmatched hardness and rust resistance. The high traction Gen 5 frame texture, there's a flared magazine well, quickly reversible magazine catch, easy working ambidextrous slide stop lever, the Glock's modular backstrap system MBS for individual operator adjustability, as well as high visibility orange magazine followers on the 17-round magazine. And finally, the Gen 5 comes with Glock's Marksman barrel, which Glock claims improves accuracy. By the way, you can get a filler for the space behind the magazine well if it really bugs you. Disassembly of the Glock 17 is fairly easy. First thing we're going to do is just make sure that it's empty. Then we're going to remove the magazine. Then we're going to pull the trigger. And then we're going to bring this slide back just about 1/8 of an inch, and then these tabs on either side of the frame, we're going to pull those down. That releases the slide from the frame. We can remove the rod and the spring, and we can remove the barrel. And that's it. Reassembly is basically the opposite. Then I return the barrel to the slide and the recoil spring and rod like that. And that then can be, the slide can then be returned to the frame. And that's it. The manufacturer's suggested retail price of the Glock 17 Gen 5 today is $695. Real world prices are closer to $556, but there are sales out there for even less. Trade-in value is about $315. A used Glock 17 Gen 5 will average about $488, but in my area, used Glocks are not very common, at my local gun shops at least, and they're often priced almost as much as a new one. You certainly see them on those online auctions, but then you have to add in the shipping and transfer fees, which add up to an additional $50 or more. So basically, there aren't many deals out there, in my opinion, given the cost of a new one and how much used ones are going for. Why buy used? Something to consider. By the way, I've seen the MOS model out there for about $620. Now, before we end today's video, I'd like to remind you, if you haven't already, be sure to like, share, and subscribe down below. And thanks for watching. Now, there's no doubting the popularity of Glocks and the prestigious position the Glock 17 has held in the Glock family of firearms. Its history goes back to the early 80s. With regards to the Gen 5 version, some say that Glock rushed the Gen 5 to the public before really fully vetting all of its features, and that may be. Debate will probably continue on that, but whether or not the new features of the Glock 17 Gen 5 will be widely appreciated by its owners, Glock continues to make the older generation Glocks available. And regardless of mine or your personal perspectives of Glocks, the G17 must be recognized as one of the most popular handguns in the world. And there's a reason for that, and it didn't happen by accident. As such, the Glock 17 Gen 5 has earned a position that deserves our serious consideration. So in conclusion, this is the 5th generation of the Glock 17, and while these latest improvement Glock touts regarding this gun sound great, most are probably lost on me due to my own limitations. So I'm probably not the best person to nitpick the finer points here, or to even provide any recommendations myself, but the Glock 17 Gen 5 does represent the latest that Glock has to offer in a full-size handgun, and there are many who believe that with its consistent performance and excellent value for what you get, it also represents a choice to take seriously. As for me, I bought this G17 with the intentions of economically setting up a dedicated home defense weapon that could host a suppressor. I could have spent more than $1,000 on a suppressor-ready pistol, but this used Glock 17 seemed like a logical solution, so I'll take my time and get familiar with this gun. Maybe now that I own one, to really spend some time with, perhaps I'll even develop a fonder appreciation for this popular firearm. You never know. Did I make the right choice? Well, it's probably too early to tell, but I'm sure I'll be reporting out in future reviews whether this Glock 17 Gen 5 was really a good idea. And now that I'm a Glock owner, perhaps with some range time, I'll even improve my ability to shoot it well. Any weapon you carry is better than the one you left at home. Thanks for watching. Hope you'll be back for my next tabletop review. Until next time, stay safe.